Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Today is Wednesday, July the 17th, 2024, and we're so glad that you're here. If you're maybe tuning in for the first time, we hope that you will stay tuned and find out more about our ministry and how we encourage you in the ways of stewardship. We help you to defund darkness with a biblically responsible investment strategy that you can learn more about at our website, financialissues.org. And the second part of our mission is to fund the light, to encourage you to be a joyful and generous giver. Speaking of stewardship, let's get to our stewardship verse of the day. It comes from Psalm 128, 1 and 2. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat of the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. Seth, what do you think?
It's good, Shana. Yeah, God's blessing, we see it often in Scripture. It's a wonderful promise, and it's a guarantee to all of us who are obedient to him. Of course, that only comes to us in Christ, obviously, but this is one of those, I think, classic laws of reaping and sowing, that if we're obedient to God, he'll bless us. And I think for many of us, many in our audience, obedience might involve considering starting a business in order to be self-sustaining, be able to bless others by providing jobs, providing a good or a service. And, I think, Shana, there's something greatly dignifying in what this passage says, eating the fruit of the labor of your hands. It makes me think of a business owner working to provide that money for himself and for his family, or herself and her family. And it brings us to our topic of the day for today, which is the fundamentals of business ownership. And so, Shana, just to begin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the necessity of small businesses in our country and the owners that lead them, and how these things can really be a benefit and a blessing to our society.
Yeah. So, our economy is very much driven by small businesses. I don't know that if it's still true. I think there are maybe one or two employers that have surpassed the size of small businesses as providing jobs for the economy. Probably the government has surpassed small businesses, which is, I chuckle only because I laugh to keep from crying, because, the government is not a good and efficient provider of jobs, and it is not their responsibility to be providing jobs. That's the job of the private markets. Small businesses are very important to the growth and the financial well-being of our country. Yeah.
So, what are some of these maybe key considerations that you'd give to our audience members if they're considering perhaps operating a business? I know a lot of people out there, might love the idea of it. They think, oh, yeah, I could be a great business owner. There's a lot of things to think about, though. What would be some of those?
There are a lot of things to think about, and it makes me chuckle because both of my kids are pretty entrepreneurial and always wanting to start businesses to do this or that. And, so I take that as an opportunity to help train them. My 13-year-old asked me the other day, he said, can I go knock doors in the neighborhood and see if I can clean some windows? He said, I said, what for? He said, I want to make some money. I said, okay. I said, well, you tell me what your plan is. Why don't we start here? I said, what would you charge us to do the house? And so he started, you can see him start to count the cost, and he starts to, because I really want him to see, because I know things just from experience, being an adult, being a business owner. There's a lot of things he hasn't thought. He hasn't really thought this through. He's just thinking of walking away with some money in his pocket. And so I said, okay. I said, start here. How much would you charge us? He gives us a price. I said, okay, you're hired. I said, but before you get paid, Dad's got to inspect the job. So, he goes around, he's like, well, what am I going to clean with? You see him go through and start to count the costs. So, that's a very basic example, but that's what we have to do as adults too. We have to, and we talked about this just the other day on the show, counting the cost. So, you may be really good at something. Like, one of the things that I found in practice is that, doctors and lawyers tend to make the worst financial managers. Their finances tend to really be a mess. That's not what their gifting is in. And so, they're really good doctors, and they're maybe really good, lawyers, or maybe they're running a really good restaurant, but they're not so great at the financial end of it. And so it's very prudent to get good counsel, good godly counsel, wise counsel from people in the legal field, people in the tax field about the structure of your company. So if your talent is making great widgets, you need to, and you've been called to go into business to create widgets. Make sure that you get into business in the right way. So, get yourself connected with equally yoked people in areas where you don't have that expertise. And of course, use debt very responsibly. Sometimes it's necessary to borrow money to get started, but count the cost. Make sure that you understand how interest works, how your payments work, that you have a plan to get things paid off.
And Shana, in your experience, in owning your own practice as well, is there a biblical doctrine of business ownership? Like, can we look to the scriptures as examples of, how we can kind of do this well?
Well, absolutely. God created everything, so he created business. He created the principles of business. If you read through, there's much to be said in the scriptures regarding money and stewardship. There's scriptures about equal weights and measures, and really spend some time studying those things and being fair and being honest, and all of those characteristics that we're encouraged to have in our personal character really need to apply to business as well. One of the best things that I did, I didn't do it before I started my career. I've always kind of been an entrepreneur and, been in business. But as I embarked in this most recent chapter in my career, where I was really figuring out how to integrate my faith with my entrepreneurship, I took a really great class called Biblical Entrepreneurship by Patrice Sague. It's the way you spell his name is Tsague. He runs a ministry called the Nehemiah Project, and he ministers to people who are in business. He teaches people biblical entrepreneurship. So that's one thing that I can encourage you. He even has a 30-day devotional book. I forget the name of it, but you can even get it on Amazon or wherever you buy those kind of things. And it'll really help you start to integrate your faith with your business decisions.
Yeah, good stuff, Shana. That's awesome. Switching here now a little bit to the economic indicators. How necessary is it for a prospective business owner or a current business owner to have an eye on what's going on in the economy, and what things might we need to be looking out for?
Yeah, so you don't have to be an economist to run a small business, and there's things that you're going to find out on your own in your own local market. You don't necessarily need to know what all goes into GDP calculations, but you need to know what goes into the calculations to make your business grow. You need to know what interest rates are if you're going to be using debt. You need to study the ways of financing business. You don't need to be an expert on the labor market in general and be able to rattle off the unemployment rate and all of those things like that. But you do need to know some things about hiring people, and you need to know things about the labor market in your area, especially if your business is going to require human resources, which are people.
Yep. And then now moving to just some of those keys of sustainability. How can we achieve long-term success in business ownership?
Well, first and foremost, we have to recognize God as the CEO.
Yeah.
We call them our businesses, we call it our money, but as Christians, we really know that it's our money that belongs to God that we're stewarding. There's more to the story than just that, and we use those that terminology very lightly, but we recognize that God owns it all, and that he is ultimately the CEO. So we need to seek wisdom from God, from the scriptures. We need to be regularly reading our Bible. God has a way. I mean, he created us. He knows us. He has a way of speaking to our hearts if we'll just sit still enough to listen. And of course, as I already mentioned, seek godly counsel.
Yeah. And then Shana, might be the last question we get to before the end of this segment here, but what about this idea of, long-term success when it comes to our own personal kind of leanings. Like, my guess is a business owner probably needs to be a patient person, understanding you might not churn the profit that you want right away. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you also have to not justify going too long without turning a profit.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to take those things very seriously. Learn from your mistakes. Repent from any errors in judgment, and try again if you experience failure. One of the things that our founder Dan Celia used to say is that he always learned more from his failures than in his mistake. From his successes. We could take that to heart and just. Always take it back to the Lord and seek guidance. That's the number one key in everything in life, because why wouldn't you ask the one who has all the answers, right?
Amen.
Well, folks, we got to take a break, but we're going to come back with more financial issues right after this break.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions, and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge, life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, and I was driving, and I saw the Women's Help Center sign, and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him, because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Well, folks, we're talking this morning about business ownership, some of the fundamentals of it. Shana's given us some great insight on this. And Shana, my next question for you is kind of the nuts and bolts of it. There are different types of business ownership, as you know, I'm sure. How might we determine which might be best for our situation? And maybe, first of all, what are those different types of business ownership?
Yeah. So you could be a sole proprietor. I would say that that's how the majority of very small businesses start. Maybe you have a lawn business, or maybe you have some type of side hustle. Maybe you have a little retail shop or something like that. So sometimes you start as a sole proprietor, and you file that as a Schedule C on your tax return. You have income and expenses, and you get to offset those and just pay taxes on your profit. And then a lot of times as businesses develop, or maybe you start out this way, maybe there's a partnership. Maybe you have ideas and experience. Maybe somebody else has the capital to get it started. Maybe you go into some type of partnership, or maybe you both bring both to the table. You're going to need some help from a legal professional to set up some kind of agreement, some kind of arrangement. If there's, and you should really get into talking about even down the road, like what is the exit strategy for that? What if one person dies prematurely? Is there going to be a buy-sell agreement? And is that buy-sell agreement going to be funded? That's a big topic. Corporations are another way to set up a business. There's S Corps and there's C Corps, and that kind of has to do with, gets into the liability protection and coverage part of it and the taxation part of it. So it's obvious that you're going to need some help from some different professionals where, you don't have all of the knowledge to make those decisions. I would also say that it's a good idea to involve a tax professional in the very beginning stages of setting up your business. They could probably save you a lot of headaches down the road, get you started in how to do your bookkeeping and, give you some guidance in what's deductible, what's not, what's the best way to structure different types of things.
Yeah, good stuff, Shana. And then kind of the last question here, and I love getting to hear your own experience of this. You are the owner of several businesses, actually. What wisdom can you share from your own experience of business ownership?
Well, it's a lot. There's, and I would agree with what our founder Dan Celia said, that we learn far more from our failures than from our successes.
Yeah.
So I've experienced both, and they've all been beneficial. It maybe didn't seem like it when you're going through some of the failures, but if you really take the opportunity to see what God's trying to teach you and all of that, you can learn from it. You can recover. You can go on and do great things, be very successful in business. And, I came to some very serious crossroads in my career with this last season. God had blessed me with a very profitable and growing business, and then he called me higher. I learned about biblically responsible investing when I didn't know about that before, and I had some serious cost counting to do. At the end of the day, it did require a leap of faith, though. You can only get so far in our human reasoning, and I had to sit down. I had to put a business plan down on paper. I encourage you to do that if you're even considering doing a business, whether it's washing windows like my 13-year-old was going to do, or something bigger and more involved, is to have some kind of plan. It also helps to remind you of how good God is, because I often will go back and look at that business plan, and it wasn't something fancy. I didn't buy a bunch of software. I just used my experience. I counted the costs. I wrote down the things that I knew, some assumptions that I had to make about income and revenue, and some about the sale of my other business, and about the expenses that I was going to incur. And I jotted down a 10-year plan on paper, and I was very conservative about it. And now I get to go back. I really saw the success. I saw the result of my 10-year plan in about year 4. So I got to go back and recognize the goodness of God, and how it was really the Lord that gives us success. We're called to be responsible, to count the cost, to do our due diligence, put together a plan. But at the end of the day, the success or failure is really in the hands of the Lord.
Yeah, Shana, that's really well said. It kind of brings to mind, as you were talking there, the notion of true success. There may come a day where, just like you had to do, you had to choose the higher calling of being obedient to God, whether or not that ended up costing you dollars in the long run. Maybe it did. Maybe it also ended up being a blessing in the long run too. Could you just speak to that idea of following what God wants for us in business, even if it costs us money?
Yeah. So as I was counting the cost, I mean, it was serious. I could, the one outcome would be that everything that I had worked so hard for would just be gone, that what I thought would happen would fail, that I could just stay in the confines of what was safe and profitable and prosperous, or I could follow my conscience and go after where God was leading me. Like I said, at the end of the day, it was a leap of faith, and I had to take that leap of faith and trust that God was going to honor my desire to follow him.
It's well said. It's awesome, Shana.
Well, speaking of business, I wanted to share this tweet that I saw. I'm not sure. I guess you still call them tweets, even though it's X.
Yeah, I don't know what would be the tweet version of an X. I don't know.
I don't know.
Tweets is better. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a tweet, and I don't even know how it got in my feed, but it's It's a group called Occupy Democrats. I also have one that keeps popping up that says Biden wins, and I keep wanting to be smart and ask them if they're going to change the name after November, but I refrain. Anyway,
There you go.
Occupy Democrats said this on Twitter. President Biden brilliantly steals Donald Trump's RNC thunder with a historic proposal to cap rental costs across the country, a life-changing policy for countless Americans. And it gets even better. The new plan would cap annual rent increases for tenants of major landlords at 5%. Not only that, it would strip tax benefits from corporate landlords who failed to comply with the rule. Biden is set to formally unveil the proposal in Nevada tomorrow, but the early reports are already spreading like wildfire. This is the kind of kitchen table policy that Democrats excel at. The new measure would apply to landlords who own more than 50 units, which equates to roughly half of all rental properties in the country. Crucially, the rule would not affect units that have not yet been built, so as not to discourage new construction. This is what real government looks like. Donald Trump is offering nothing but hollow hatred and unpopular policies like an abortion ban. President Biden is offering real positive change. The choice is clear. Vote blue, says Occupy Democrats, not financial issues, because we don't endorse political candidates. But let me just break this down on so many levels for you. So you have Donald Trump being called a fascist. You have him being called all of these names, threatening to destroy democracy. What can destroy democracy and freedom in the capital markets more than putting price controls on certain things? You know, this is obviously Biden's efforts to try to win votes from more people. I mean, this is just ridiculous. They even acknowledge in this post that it's not going to apply to new construction because they don't want to discourage new construction. No, it's probably going to happen after so many years after they build it. But you know, we have a housing shortage in this country right now, and that's what's got housing prices so high. So now you're going to put caps. You, the government, are going to get into the private market, and you're going to tell the private market how much money they can make. I mean, it's already happened in utilities. You know, utilities are very, very highly regulated, but this is just ridiculous. But he's right. These are the kinds of things that the Democrats are excelling at. Taking away freedoms, putting a cap on how much money people can make, and then punishing those who have made a good living for themselves, trying to make them what they call pay their fair share, but, you know, really just extract more money that they get to spend frivolously. So that's another risk that you should consider if you want to go into business. You know, look at the red tape, look at the regulations, look at all of those kind of things that are going to impact your business. Well, retail sales came out. We'll try to squeeze this in here before the end of the program. Retail sales came out just yesterday, and they stalled in June from May of 2024, following an upwardly revised 0.3% in the previous period. So retail sales came in essentially at zero, which didn't seem like a really great number, but it was better than the negative expectation that they had. Now, lower gas prices contributed to this flatline in retail sales because gasoline sales are included in the retail sales number. Gasoline sales fell 3% month over month and at 2.1% year over year. And that's, of course, you know, Biden's last-ditch effort to drain even more of the strategic oil reserve to keep gas prices low over the holidays and try to win some votes there. Core retail sales, though, if you exclude food, auto dealers, building materials, stores, gasoline stations, which are used to calculate GDP, the core retail sales numbers saw a big upside surprise in June with a 0.9% month-over-month gain versus what was expected to be only a 0.2% increase. That comes after a 0.4% rise in May that was left unrevised. I've seen snippets from many consumer-dependent companies since earnings season is getting kicked off, and the only portion of consumer spending that is really doing well is coming from the higher end. The lower to middle income class is stretched. They're becoming extremely more picky on the things that they buy, going down in brand or quality, trying to count their nickels and dimes, and they're focused on needs, not wants. So, we'll have more to say about that maybe in tomorrow's show as we talk about where we are with the Fed looking at interest rates and, what are we expecting interest rates to do. Well, folks, if you listen to a short version of the show, we have to wish you a farewell today. We hope that you can get the full version by going to financialissues.org or downloading our phone app. For the rest of you, stay tuned. We're going to be back with more financial issues. Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Samuel Case, news anchor with FISM News, sits down to read real comments from real viewers.
All righty, let's see, a bigger one here from Spectrum Nomad. That's a fancy name. Finally, a non-biased news source that tells everything how it is without having to push their opinion. It's not necessarily true we're not biased. We are Christian, we are conservative, but you're totally right that we don't try to push our own opinions or commentary in the story. So it's really great to hear that you're picking up on that.
When it comes to money, I always have so many questions. I never know where to go to get answers to those questions. They never really teach you this stuff in school, like some of the best ways to handle it, how to save, when to invest, where to invest, even just what to do with the money. And if I put it in the stock market, what's the best way to protect from losing it all? That fear can be paralyzing. You don't really know what decisions to make. As a Christian, I don't want to give my money to people who are going to use it for things that God hates. When I discovered Financial Issues, it was like a burden was lifted off my shoulders. Not only did I gain access to a simple investment strategy that I can manage myself, I also have the peace of mind that my money will not be going to companies that actively promote things that God hates. Financial Issues has allowed me to experience peace in my investments.
Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Good to be here with you today. Hope you enjoyed that conversation there, first part of the show. Thank you for joining us today, folks. Hey, wanted to open up this third segment here by reminding you we have a conference call today. Noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Folks, listen, you should have gotten an email alert that was sent out to your inbox about 2 or 3 days ago, giving you the details, the call-in number, the access code. I understand that we have some new partners as well, so please listen up very closely, folks. You get access to the conference call in that email. So go open that email up. Make sure to save that number. Actually, I think it's a great idea to do, by the way. Once you get that email, you see that phone number there. That phone number is the same. The access code changes. So save the phone number in speed dial on your phone. The access code is what gets updated with each different conference call to protect the security of the conference call and of that part of the partnership there. But save the number. Put it in your speed dial. And so then when you call today at 12 Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, just dial that number, type in the 7-digit access code, and then once you type that in, it will let you into the conference call and you'll be able to listen. It'll probably will be silent in the first couple minutes. Shana typically starts right at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 Central. So if you want to get on a little bit early, make sure you don't miss anything. I think it's a great idea too. And then after the fact, the conference call will be posted on the conference call page of the partner side of the website. So if you go to financialissues.org on the partner side, underneath partners, scroll down on the left to partner conference calls, right around the middle there. Click on that. There's several past conference calls there as well. We don't have conference calls from long past there with the exception of one because most of them are no longer applicable because things change. Now, there's one conference call that we have kept up there. That's Dan's very famous conference call that he gave on the Great Reset from about 3 years ago. I would encourage you to go listen to that conference call before today's conference call if you have not done so yet. And if you're wondering what in the world I'm talking about because you're not a partner with the ministry, now's a great time to become one for $132 a year. So consider doing that today. And if you do that today, you can even become a partner at 12:59 Eastern Time. You can still join the conference call today at 1. So make sure that you all join us today. I don't want any of you to miss out on what Shana has to say today. It's going to be good stuff. Today's show, folks, sponsored in part by Samaritan Ministries. We love Samaritan Ministries. They do some great work in the healthcare front. SamaritanMinistries.org is the place to go to check them out. SamaritanMinistries.org. Let's take a look now here at the markets, what they did yesterday. So a strong end to the week, folks. We talked about this last week. Strong end of the week and a very strong Monday on the prospect of a predicted Trump victory in 2024. This, again, I said this on Monday, that the Trump assassination, taking out all of the spiritual implications of it, all the moral implications of it, from a purely political standpoint, this will only serve Trump well. And it seems to be doing that. And the markets seem to be understanding that as well. They continued to roar yesterday. The Dow Jones was up 700 points, vying for its best day in over a year since June of 2023. The small cap heavy Russell 2000 had a great day as well. We don't talk often about the Russell 2000, but it did spike over 3% for the day. By the end of the day on Tuesday, the Dow was up almost 2%, the S&P up about 0.6, and the NASDAQ moderately up about 0.1%. Now, the pre-markets this morning, speaking of the NASDAQ, tech-heavy NASDAQ being a little bit lower, the pre-markets were actually selling off a little bit this morning in the tech sector, which resulted in the NASDAQ down considerably. And as the markets have opened up, that's how they've been reflected. The Dow Jones is down about 1/3% as the markets open. The S&P 500 down a full percentage point and a little more. The NASDAQ is way down today, 1.6% as of right now. It seems like investors are continuing to sell off of some of those big tech winners that we're seeing there. We've seen a lot of gains in the tech sector, and from time to time this will happen where we see sell-offs. So that's what's going on there as we speak. A couple headlines to look out for today. First, we have the earnings calendar. I failed to mention this on Monday, but earnings season is getting into full swing. So yesterday we had Bank of America, Morgan Stanley. Actually wanted to mention they each beat estimates, better than expected trading, investment banking. Morgan Stanley's profit and revenue in the second quarter beat estimates. They reported earnings of $1.82 compared to the LSEG estimate of 1.65 per share, $1.65 per share. Bank of America, same thing, beat the second quarter profit and revenue estimates. The bank reported earnings of about 83 cents a share compared to the estimate of 80 cents per share there. So the bank's looking pretty good as they start out for earnings season. Continues today with Johnson & Johnson and Bancorp. Then we get Netflix tomorrow, among other smaller ones. And Friday, we get American Express. For the economic calendar this week, folks, Wednesday we get housing starts. We also get building permits for June. That's today. That is actually, yes, that is today because today's Wednesday. We get industrial production, capacity utilization. We get the Fed's beige book today as well. So could see some movement in the markets from that, but there's a good chance you might not also. Thursday, we get initial jobless claims. That's tomorrow. Philly Fed survey for July. U.S. leading economic indicators for June as well. And that Friday, just a little bit more Fed speak there. We'll have a couple of Fed elites speaking. But folks, there was a big headline that I wanted to get to today before the ag report. So Brian from, I believe, Louisiana shared this early on in the show, and I've dropped a link there in the chat. But we're seeing some great news here, folks. It appears, and this is still somewhat breaking news as of today, but it appears that John Deere, who we've been keeping an eye on, released a statement rejecting DEI policies. They are committed to their customers. Folks, this is great, great news. We have talked about this. We talked about it yesterday. We are preparing to hold their feet to the fire. But I did want to share this with you that John Deere released a statement. I think it was in the early morning or late evening hours of yesterday, early morning of this morning, basically doing what Tractor Supply did, apologizing for getting into the woke stuff and into the DEI stuff. So I'll just read some of the statement for you. It says, John Deere, founded in America's heartland 200 years ago. We value our customers. So to best serve our customers and employees, we're listening to feedback, looking for opportunities to grow. This is essentially a corporate version of an apology. Based on ongoing conversations, quote, we have committed to the following. Listen to this. We will no longer participate in or support external social or cultural awareness parades, festivals, or events. Business resource groups will exclusively be focused on professional development, networking, mentoring, and supporting talent recruitment efforts. That is great stuff there. That means it's not being supporting DEI efforts or woke efforts or things that ruin morale and don't make any money. Auditing all company mandated training materials, things like that. Reaffirming within the business, listen to this one, that the existence of diversity quotas and pronoun identification have never been and are not company policy. Now, whether they ever were company policy, that, you know, maybe they were, and maybe John Deere is trying to just cover itself here. But regardless, this is a great statement here. Last one, they also said we fundamentally believe a diverse workforce enables us to best meet our customers' needs. Because of that, we'll continue to track and advance the diversity of our organization. I would prefer different language there, obviously, but there's nothing technically wrong with that language as well. The point I want to share with you all, folks, is that BRI is working. People are listening. They're realizing. They're waking up. We don't want any of the woke nonsense. We just want companies to be good companies. And it appears like John Deere may have realized this. And this is great news. Again, this is somewhat breaking news, folks. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to keep you updated on this over the next couple days. There's still some things that John Deere has been doing that we're concerned about, absolutely. But we're keeping an eye on it for you there as well. We'll talk more about this later on in the next segment of the show. We got Craig Haugaard coming up here and then more financial issues right after this break. Stay with us.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag update for July 17th. Well, old-timers in the trade used to talk about Turnaround Tuesday, and that's what we experienced yesterday as the corn market closed firm on light fund buying. You know, now that I think about it, some of those so-called old-timers are actually younger than me. Man, time is flying. In the coming days, look for weather to drive this market. The weather has turned cooler across much of the Corn Belt, is expected to stay at or below normal through the end of the month, which is going to continue to provide nearly ideal conditions for pollination. Yesterday's close had December corn 4.5 cents higher at 408 3/4. Soybeans had a meek recovery yesterday as the idea that the U.S. soybean crop has pretty high odds of exceeding the USDA's yield projection. On the export front, China continues to favor Brazil as the primary origin for soybeans. In spite of that, November beans were able to post a higher close. They're up 3.25 cents at 10.43 1/4. Wheat markets continue to slip as demand is mostly hand-to-mouth, and markets seem to favor the negative side after the recent rise in production estimates. At the closing bell, Minneapolis September wheat was a nickel lower at $5.75 3/4. Kansas City dropped by 5 1/4 cents. They closed at $5.50 1/4. And Chicago was a penny and 3/4 lower at $5.30 3/4 per bushel. Cotton futures were pressured by a stronger U.S. dollar. When the closing bell finally rang, December futures were down 107 points as they settled at 71.37. Livestock futures, on the other hand, showed some strength. October live cattle were 72.5 cents higher as they closed at $184.52 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle were 62.5 cents higher, selling at $259.52 per hundred. And October lean hog futures were $2.42.5 higher as they closed at $72.20 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures inched their way higher in yesterday's trade. At the close, the August futures were up by 5 points as they closed out the session at $19.74. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? And Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Well, thanks for joining us here, folks. Again, some of that breaking news we just saw, it appears that John Deere is reversing its course, which is really great for us. We mentioned it yesterday, of course, that we want this company to do exactly what they just did. So I'm seeing a lot of great chat comments here. I'm loving it. Peter and Josie saying, call Tractor Supply to cheer them on. Let us know if Deere follows through on this. Call Investor Relations there too. That's awesome. That's really, really good. And, you know, some of you I know are saying, you know, this is great, but the company needs to do more. And I agree with you. Absolutely. They need to answer for moving the workforce out of the U.S. and into you know, other countries. Now, I will say, those issues, that one in particular, is not technically a BRI issue, though it is an issue that we care about, but that does not technically make a company non-BRI. We certainly want them to continue to follow through, but I think the thing to celebrate here is that this is a necessary step in the right direction, absolutely necessary step, and I think that's really, really good. So great to hear about another company just focusing on just their business. Yeah, Brian, isn't it great? It's nice when companies just do that. That's really good stuff. So we're going to keep the pedal to the metal here, guys. But this is great news here as we see. We did get a question here, Grant. There was actually another Brian from Louisiana who was asking about this particular company, and I'll just go ahead and answer this one here, Grant. Brian from Louisiana was saying, I'm wondering about this company. Should we sell them after reading their DEI and woke agenda participation? Brian, I would tell you, hold off on selling them for right now, because the hope is that we don't have to sell them. The hope is that we want to be able to see them turn course, and it appears that they have. So I'd say for right now, just hang on to them if you can. Hang on to them, and we'll see what happens from here. Now, obviously anything can happen for sure, but I think something like this is a pretty clear indicator that this company is moving back in the right direction. They've made enough people angry that they're not going to change what they are committed to doing now. So I think that's great news there. So great to see you all. Hey, I did want to tell you all, thank you so much for your prayers for me and my family. We lost power last night up here in the Pennsylvania area. Definitely not nearly as bad as what some of our friends have been experiencing down in Texas. But nonetheless, I do appreciate those prayers last night. A little bit tired. The kids were up rather late, so I'm running on some low sleep here. But we're having some fun nonetheless here. So it's good to be here with you all this morning. I'm looking through some of these other chat comments here and seeing so many of you on the chat, and it's great to see you. Grant, let's get to a couple more of these questions here. What do we got from James in South Carolina?
Yeah, James is just saying how useful it is to use the portfolio tracker when migrating to a different asset allocation model.
Yes, that is good, James. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're making great use of it. It is a great tool. And folks, you got to make sure that you're making use of the portfolio tracker. If you're a partner, it's at your disposal to use. Portfolio tracker is one of the best. And if you need help with the tracker, obviously you can call on the show for sure, but a great place to start. On the partner overview page, there's a video that we recorded about 9 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. Excuse me, it's not 9 minutes and 30 seconds. It's about a 9 minute and 30 second clip. It's titled Portfolio Tracker. About maybe 5 to 10 minutes into the video is a great place for you to start, where we go through just some of the basics of how to use the portfolio tracker. The beauty of it is that it keeps you oriented to where you're supposed to be in terms of allocation. You can use that button once kind of check and see where you're at compared to where you should be. It's really helpful. And it's good to just keep track of your progress too, not to get bogged down in looking back at all, but certainly to be able to celebrate where you have come from, I think is really good. What else do we have there, Grant, today?
Yeah, we also have a comment from Robert. While it is entertaining and humorous to make fun of Joey and Skamala, we need to constantly remind ourselves that they are both nothing more than stooges placed in their current positions to distract us from the fact that the deep state is making 100% of all decisions and direction in our country. And, I just wanted to comment on this and say, sure, the reality is that people always say, oh, the deep state is a conspiracy. I don't know what you're talking about. But the reality is that the deep state is real, and what it is really is that all these corporations are buying off our politicians. Yeah. And with that in mind, it's like, how much of BlackRock does BlackRock control of Washington and all these other government institutions?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's well said, man. And, Robert, I really appreciate that comment. I think you're spot on, Grant. I agree with what you were saying, too. There's something fishy going on, for sure. And with the deep state pulling the strings behind this administration here, you know what? We have to ask these questions too when we consider the events of this past weekend as well. And but I do think it's an important time as any right now, Robert, to kind of jump off your comment, to use this as a reminder for all of us, starting with me, that as we rightly call out and fight against and stand against what is a wicked regime and what these current leaders are doing, that we also do it in a way that's respectful to them and as respectful to the leaders that God has put in charge. Now, I am no fan of these leaders at all, but it is a great reminder for us that this is one of the things that separates us from them, is that when we criticize them, we can do it, especially as Christians. It starts with us as Christians. We can do it in a way that is honoring to them, while also calling out what they're doing to be wrong, but not compromising our testimony in any way. See, when the other side does this, when the other side criticizes, they just attack. They just attack. They also incite violence, too. I believe that what happened to former President Donald Trump over the weekend, almost losing his life because a bullet was almost put through his head, happened because the other side incited violence. They incited violence. That happened. That's absolutely true. But this is a way that we can be separate from them, because when they criticize, it's just anger and rage. When we criticize, we're able to do it because we're grounded in Christ. We're able to do it in a way that's loving. And that's really, really good. And I'm not trying to take the wind out of anyone's sails to say that we can't speak the truth passionately. We must. That's what I'm doing right now. You all do that on a day-to-day basis in your jobs, in your schools, wherever you are. With your money as well, you speak with your money. But I think this is really a way for us to be able to honor God when we talk about the people in power who we don't like. And honestly, folks, I don't know why in the world these people are in charge. I don't know why Joe Biden has been in charge for the last 4 years, other than the fact that God is the one who sovereignly puts kings in charge for such a time as this, for reasons that only he knows, sometimes are revealed to us, for sure. But reasons that only he knows, absolutely. And I believe it would do us far better to thank God for his providence and his protection, and to ask him to work out his good plan through these wicked rulers. And as we live under a wicked regime, a regime that was put there by the sovereign hand of God, that we would be able to have the fortitude and the steadfastness to speak the truth and to obey God rather than men. And I think that's really, really important for us to do. Again, please don't hear me say this. I don't want to get any messages on social media saying, "Oh, Seth, you're speaking weakly here." That's not what I'm doing. Okay, that's not what I'm doing. What I am telling you to do is that we need to speak with tenacity and truth. We need to amp that up. We need to be stronger, but we also must do it in love. Something has to separate us from them, and this is it. The way that we do it, the way that we speak about people that we don't like, this is a way for us to do it. Let's remember to be respectful. Respectful of the authorities above us. Like it or not, right now, Joe Biden is my president. Joe Biden is your president. Like it or not. For the other side, they may have to come to terms with a Trump president, with a Trump presidency for the next 4 years. I can imagine what their response might be, and it's probably not going to be a good one. But we have the opportunity to respond differently. And so let's remember who's really in charge also. It's actually not the deep state, though the deep state is pulling the strings in a lot of things, I think. And it's not Biden, and it's not Trump if he is elected president, and it's not anyone else. It's the Lord Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Let us remember that, folks. I hope we can do that. Brian from Missouri, good comment here. Kind of interesting, all of a sudden, all the nonstop media about Biden needing to step down from Democrats has stopped, isn't it, Brian? I think it's very interesting. I think part of the reason for that is because, again, this goes back to what I said earlier in the program. What happened to Donald Trump on Saturday has only served to bolster his campaign. It's only made him look good, politically speaking. The Democrats understand that. The Democrats have a new fight on their hands now because they have to do some level of cleanup work here, understanding, now none of them would admit this, but understanding that it was their rhetoric that kind of led to this. Now, none of them pulled the trigger, but that rhetoric leading to it, they have to come up with a response for it. And so we saw many Democrats, Biden, Obama, some of these top elite Democrats being forced to say, my thoughts and prayers are with Donald Trump, who many of them have called Adolf Hitler in the last several years. And many of them have said that he needs to be taken out. Our current president said that he needs to be, we need to put Donald Trump in a bullseye. I know he was speaking metaphorically there, but that's political violent language is what that is. I think what's happening, Brian, is the reason that this is happening is because the Democrats realize, okay, we need to do cleanup work here. And also at this point, it might be too far gone of a conclusion to try to get someone else into the race. So very interesting stuff there. But yes, it has stopped, especially over these last several days. It'd be interesting to see, folks, what happens in these next couple of months here. But boy, what a great show it was. I'm grateful for you all. Keep an eye out for what happens with John Deere as well. Again, that is great news. We'll be talking more about it on the show coming up in the next couple of days. But remember, folks, All you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with it. And remember, we also have a conference call today, 12 Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sure Shana will be giving some more insight on everything that we talked about on the show here. Join us for the conference call today, 12 Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, I'm Seth Udinsky, and we'll see you tomorrow, Lord willing, for more financial issues. Have a great day.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.